Hello viewers, thank you for returning for another anime review. As well as a spoiler warning, I'm also going to add in a language warning in this one. It's something that I realized that I never really had to worry about for the last 8 reviews, and it's not anything major. Cursing isn't anything that I usually consciously think about. I do think that some people tend to have a hard time getting their point across when they do it excessively, but it's just not something that I consciously try to stay away from. It just usually doesn't happen. Here, I got kind of passionate in my rants about this show, so certain things kind of fell into place, I guess. It's just a warning because I know some people like to see them. Futakoi is something that I found kind of at random. I'd finished whatever I was watching last and needed something new. I decided to watch the first thing I clicked on in a big list, so it wasn't something that I'd already heard of and was dying to see, but the idea was interesting enough. The plan for the story went something like this. Our main character, a boy by the name of Nozomu Futami, is moving back to his hometown that he left when he was 5 or so after his mother's death. However, things are a little more complex because this town has a legend attached to it. This story went something like this. Once upon a time, there was a pair of twin girls who fell in love with the same man. The man was unable to choose one over the other, so the girls, overcome with despair, turned into birds and flew away, because clearly this was the most logical thing to do. Anyway, people use this legend as an explanation as to why there are so many twins born in this town. So because Nozomu's father is going to Hawaii for his job, he gives his son a choice. He can either go with him or he can stay in Japan. Nozomu chooses to stay in Japan, so he moves back to his hometown to live with a woman named Miyabi and her twin daughters. Coincidentally, Miyabi takes care of the shrine dedicated to the twins legend. Early on, Nozomu's mind is already swamped with memories of his old neighbors, twin girls by the names of Karuko and Sumireko Ichijo. When they were younger, they promised to both become his brides one day, but this isn't terribly important right now because they were little kids. It was cute and nothing serious. So while he's daydreaming about meeting up with the Ichijo twins, he runs into 2 other girls, the Sakurazuki twins, Kira and Yura. Basically, they're really kind, rich girls who are being let out into the real world for the first time. Now, here's where things started to go a little downhill for me. Throughout the course of the series, 3 other sets of twins are introduced, but the Ichijo twins and the Sakurazuki twins are really the only important ones. In a lot of cases, they're the only constant characters apart from Nozomu himself. A somewhat irritating exception would be the Shirogane twins, who are only in the show for 2 or 3 episodes, but have more character development than Kira and Yura, who are in every single one. But this exception is only a small part of the show's bigger flaws. Like Angel Beats, Futakoi has a large cast and only 13 episodes. I realized pretty early on that this show would be lacking in the character development department. If we were to judge based solely on the opening, it would be reasonable to assume that all 6 sets of twins are equally important, but as the last doesn't even appear once until episode 8, this is clearly untrue. There were a few instances where there were some really nice character development moments. I'm particularly fond of episode 5, where they really go into the differences in Karuko and Sumireko's personalities. It drew me into their characters, where in a lot of cases there was no real attachment for me because I knew practically nothing about them. One of the most disappointing cases of this was with the Sakurazuki twins. All the way up until the end I had trouble telling them apart. Kira and Yura really could have been one person, and I don't think this show would have suffered because of it. And there are 2 people, and these are 2 people who are in every single episode. Unfortunately, the next flaw that really caught my attention was the plot. The 13 episodes in Futakoi covers Nozomu's last year of junior high. I'd be a little hesitant about a love story revolving around middle schoolers anyway, because typically they give me Romeo and Juliet flashbacks, where it all comes off as ridiculous and awkward. I feel like there's a age where you can write a successful love story, and 12 or 13 isn't it. And add to that the fact that I have a severe dislike for love triangles, and at first glance this looked like it was going to be like a love octagon. So I was a little apprehensive at first, but in the end I was actually a little disappointed that they hadn't gone the romance route, or to be more accurate, finished the romance route. Let me back up a little. One of my biggest frustrations with Futakoi was that the writers didn't seem to have any idea what the hell they wanted to do with the story. First impression would lead one to believe that this is going to be a love story, and then a lot of the middle led me to believe that this was going to be all about friendship, which actually, in the beginning, I thought that would have been preferable, the characters being so young and all, plus the opening gives you that happy, feel-good type of vibe that I typically don't find in a romance, so that's one turn that I would have been fine with. But then, around episode 10, the love story returns with a vengeance. Even at this point, I tried to be open to it, and it could have worked out alright, except that the writers are even more indecisive than our main character. Which actually is a little side note that I'd like to add. In the beginning, I really liked Nozomu. He was kind and polite, and his passion for stargazing gave him a depth that I didn't see in most of the other characters. Even his daydreams about possible scenarios with the twins weren't perverted in the least. In fact, the show is one of the cleanest things I've seen in a long time. But as time wore on, he seemed to have less and less of a personality, and he couldn't make one solid decision to save his life. The plot almost seemed to repeat itself because of this. Which brings me back to the plot. So we're knee-deep in a love story that is dragging on and on because of our main character. Two of the best scenes of the entire show, in my opinion, come in the last few episodes. One is this huge, heartfelt argument between Karuko and Sumireiko about how they've spent their entire lives feeling inferior to each other, and the other is the opening of the final episode, where Miyabi explains to Nozomu that the shrine for the twins legend was created so that the mistake wasn't repeated. It's my favorite part. Basically, she tells him to grow a pair and stop being a whiny bastard, that it's selfish to keep all four girls hanging, and that he needs to come clean about his actual feelings and make it clear to them. So after this speech, he rushes off with a purpose, which was promising. And then, he never says a goddamn thing about how he feels about these girls. It turns into this impasse where they're all like, you know, we're going to put away our feelings and focus on exams and getting into high school, and isn't it just great that we're all such good friends? I'm sure it was meant to be happy, but it was a little hard to share in the happiness when presented with such a bullshit ending. So while the art was all very pretty, I would not recommend this to anyone. The only value I can think of this might have would be if you were looking for something clean and friendly to show a younger viewer, but even that may cause some complications because I don't think this was ever dubbed in English, and I can't blame them. Now, of course, I want everyone to keep in mind that this review is my opinions. I'm sure there are plenty of people who really like this show, and if you were planning on watching it and this didn't deter you, then great. I hope you find some value in it that I didn't. Although I will warn you that there are a lot of cliches, like a beach episode, and a culture festival episode, and a Valentine's Day episode. I just feel like there are dozens of shows, probably, with similar plots that are probably better than this one. But if that's the type of thing you like, then hey, go crazy. On another note, I actually have plans for the next review, because there is this show, also 13 episodes, called Futakoi Alternatives. Now, you may be wondering why I would be looking into an alternative of this show when I seem to dislike this so much. But from what I've read, there doesn't seem to be a single similarity between the two other than the fact that there's a lot of the same characters. There's a completely different plot, and even the main character is different. So far, it looks more promising than this, and I'm kind of hopeful. So, those are the plans until next time. Thank you for watching.